Every single day you wake up, you have the opportunity to start over, to make a difference, to right a wrong, to shift your life into a better direction. Thankfully, we have a God that gives us that second chance every day. We hope this show will bring you information and stories that will inspire you to be the best you can be. This is Every Day is a Second Chance, presented by Haiman Hogue. Thank you for joining us, and God bless.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Every Day is a Second Chance. For those of you all that have watched prior episodes, know that this is a show about hope. This is a show about knowing that we have a God of second chances, and that every single day that we're alive here on earth, every single day that we wake up, we have the opportunity to make a difference, to change our direction if we need to right or wrong if we need to change our occupation and go in a different direction. But every day we get up, we have an opportunity to start over. And I think with our society the way it is, and with social media the way it is, and everything that we've been bombarded with, I think we get into these ruts of going 150 miles an hour, and our life becomes just a fog, that we're in a routine going over and over and over. And I know so many people that get into those routines so much that they're miserable. They're miserable in their life, and they don't think that they can change things. And this show is to tell you different, because I've been through it, and I'm going to have guests on my show that have been through it, that sometimes tell you that God sometimes interjects in our life, and He makes us do a second chance. And that's what He did to me. For those of y'all that might not have seen this show before, the reason I'm doing this show is because in 2007, I almost died. I had a disease called ulcerative colitis. I had been fighting it for 5 years, but ignoring it, was treating it like you're supposed to, but I was working in 60 to 80 hours a week. I was going 150 miles an hour, and I was working in real high stress litigation. I was a trial attorney. And my disease got worse and worse and worse. And I just kept going until one day the doctor said, we either remove your colon or you're going to have colon cancer. I was only 42 years of age. I was an arrogant, a matter-of-fact trial lawyer. And my only question was, how long am I going to be off work? Because I was going to keep going. And no operation or any inconvenience was going to get in my way. Well, if you want to make God laugh, tell Him your plans, because the doctors messed up my operation. My intestines ruptured. I was in critical condition for 10 days. I was so sick that medically I should not have lived. I was in the hospital 37 days the first time. I was out of work for over 8 months. I ended up having to have 6 surgeries. The last 2, they shipped me to Cleveland, Ohio, to the Cleveland Clinic to put me back together and save my life. But I tell you that because during that time period, God put it upon my heart that I needed to write a book called Every Day is a Second Chance. And the reason was because He kicked me off my feet and made me realize a lot about my life. But one thing He made me realize is that I had gone to law school for all the wrong reasons. I'd gone to law school to make money. And for 10 years I did. And 8 months later, I was broke again. I had lived my life the way I wanted to. I'm a daredevil. I'm a very type A. I rodeoed. I rode bareback bronc for years. I played rugby in college. I was invincible. And now all of a sudden I can't walk, and I have to learn how to walk again with a walker. And I learned that everything of this world can be taken away from us in a split second. But we take it for granted, and we just keep trudging through life. But this show is to tell you that every day is a second chance. You can make a difference if you want to. Today, I have a really great special guest, Lawana Stasiak. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I knew I was going to butcher it the minute we started. Lawana and I met at a presentation that I did on estate planning. And when I talk about estate planning, I talk about my experience because the reason I'm an estate planning attorney now is because of what I went through, and because of the fact that when I went through what I did, I didn't have any estate planning documents in place, and I caused major problems to my family because I didn't. So when I give my presentations, I tell my story a little bit. And Lawana came up to me afterwards and said, I think our lives mirror each other. And so I wanted her to come on the show today and share with you her second chance, and I would say second chance experience, but I think it's multiple second chance experiences. I'm going to let her just kind of tell her story. Lawana is a marketing director for a place called Teresa's House. I'll let you tell about Teresa's House and what you do. We were talking before the show, but it sounds to me like part of her life second chance was to back off and slow down too, because she was telling me that she used to be a director and kind of be the boss. And at some point you realize that's not as all it's cracked up to be. And being the boss is kind of can drain you and can cause you to have major issues. You hear story after story of people like coaches, college football coaches who get burned out and have nervous breakdowns. Being in charge is tough. And sometimes it takes over your life. But Lawana, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And I'm just going to kind of introduce you and say, tell our viewers the amazing story you told me.
Well, thank you for having me here. And I do always believe that God, the people you meet were meant to be,
Yes.
and the places that you are. And so when I heard you at the meeting, first I thought I was not a member of this meeting. They invited me, so it was my first meeting, and I'm sitting there, and of course we're paying attention, but as you started talking, it just, in my heart, I was going, this is me. This was my age. These is things that I had. So I had to come talk to you because it's been a while, but it's still all those experiences. So when I was 42, same as you, then I had a brain tumor. And this was something that probably had my whole life. The doctor told me afterwards. But the 6 months prior to, I knew something was wrong. But again, I had a job that I worked in the hotel business. It's a very difficult 365, 24-hour business. It's night and day and going all the time. So it's high stress. You don't know hours of when you're working. And it was intense. And I was a regional, I had been a general manager or a regional VP working up. And my daughter at that time was 12. And just before this, my husband and I decided to divorce. And so all this happened at the same time. And I would turn my head and I could feel something popping behind my head. So I knew something was going on. But again, like you, I was not going to stop working. It wasn't going to stop me. I was driven. I was going to be the female that had it all, the career, the husband, the child, everything. And I have always been so responsible all my life. In different situations, I've been the one to take care of everything. I'm the oldest child. So that responsibility just is driven in you too as well. So the one morning I got up and I thought I had a seizure. I knew something was wrong. And I thought I had a stroke, but I'd had a seizure. So I drove myself to the doctor. I didn't ask someone to help me. And I have the most wonderful doctor here in Dallas I've had since the day I got here. And she actually came out herself and looked at me and said, come with me, we're gonna get some x-rays, and walked with me to get them. And then when it came in, I'm working on my BlackBerry then, I even remember. And they walk in with this and they come in to tell me I have a tumor. And I really literally looked at them and said, no, I don't. And they were like, yes, you do. And so a little bit of denial there and knocked the wind out of me. So within 2 weeks, I had surgery because it was setting on my optic nerve and my eardrum. So it had to come out quickly. My parents were here. My daughter is 12, as I said, waiting in the lobby. Before that, I had to, through that week, make a will. So I wanted to make sure we were getting a divorce, make sure my child, we decided everything of what to do. And it's the feeling of not knowing whether you're going to be okay when you go in that room. It's, I'm sorry, I'll start crying. To say goodbye was one of the hardest things going down that hallway. So,
and I know, I mean, I dance around that a lot of times because you know, I had a very arrogant attitude at that point in my life, and I was a very, you know, centered in that world of being a trial lawyer. But I remember, just like what you said, when I went in for that first surgery, I knew everything was going to be fine because, of course, I'm in control, even though I'm not in control. But because of my daughters, that was the thinking that what happens to them if something happens to me. That's a horrible, scary thing to go through.
It's exactly right. And I, like you, I knew I'd be fine. I knew I would be fine. I felt anything my life, I've never been afraid to die. I honestly can feel, I've always felt that way, but I just knew I wasn't going to that time. And then I'm a type A, controlled, yes, I'm going to get this back thing. It was her. And then when I woke up, here I am laying down, and the first thing I see is this little face over the top of me because she was staring down at me. And so that was a blessing to know, but I couldn't see. I saw double, all these things that were after surgery, but she was there. So in knowing that I had to take care of her, I still came through that I was going to be okay. I did heal, but at the same time, I was pushing myself that I'm gonna do this, and so I did. It took 6 months. It took a while, and I thought it would take longer. And bless the company that I worked for, they let me go through it and do some things in working. They were a godsend. They sent my meals every week the whole time I was off, always paid me, and they were just a blessing. So I got through that. But my marriage, it was, I would say my marriage up to then was working a lot too that caused that marriage. It would, but he moved back in the house. So he lived on one end, I lived on the other to take care of her. So not the best situation in the whole world. So healing was a little difficult, but I made it through. The two of us made it through, and my daughter and I. So fast forward, still working, still trying to be it all that I thought I needed to be. And we come 15 years later. It actually is 15 years. And my daughter, the whole story, is a playwright in New York City. Oh. And in college, she wrote a play, and it's called From A to Double D. And it's about a female that goes through her life and her bra sizes, and in the end, she has breast cancer. So it's through life story. And so she wrote this play. It was 5 years before that. And then since I had my brain, it was 10 years later that she wrote this play in college. So she did well, produced it at college, got to New York. She was starting her first rehearsal, and that's the day I found out I had breast cancer.
Oh my God.
So the coincidence was just amazing to think it was that day. So, through that process, she was with me through the whole thing. And to look at a play, my doctor here, she came back, she wore my gown in the play. My surgeon, she has exactly what my surgeon would say. And so that happened in that play.
During that time, did you ever go through why me's?
Yes, yes. So
did you ever go through a time where you were questioning God, going, God, you allowed this to happen to me 10 years ago. Now, why me? And I asked that because I knew the answer, because we all do.
We all do, yes.
We all, and I think some people feel guilty about it. Yeah. But we all go through that. Why?
Why?
Why did this happen to me? Why are you allowing this to happen to me? And why are you allowing it to happen to me again? Because I haven't shared really a whole lot on this and mine, but you and I shared this is because 10 years after my situation, I had to have emergency spine surgery because I had a ruptured disc that was pushing on my back nerve. And unlike you got through yours, my life is always, whenever something like that happens, if there's a complication that can happen, it'll happen to me. Because after my surgery, I had leakage, and they had to go in and stop the spinal cord leak, and it caused a spinal infection. And I went through that exact same thing, going, God, 10 years ago, you almost took my life, and you woke me up, and you kicked me off my feet. I get why you kicked me off my feet, because I needed it. I had a bad attitude, but why again? What have I done wrong now? Those kind of things.
Right. And that's probably the most alone I felt at that one. I really did. I felt so alone when I sat in that car, came out of that office. I never felt totally alone, and I did. And then when I called her, not realizing all that happened, but then I can tell you where I feel like God, why this happened. So she came back, she went through the entire surgery. Everything is done there out of my surgery in this play. And at the end, I remember she went into my surgeon and said, what do I say at the end? Because they always bring out the writer. And I remember her saying, you tell your own story, how you felt. You're the daughter.
Right.
So my daughter stands out there and tells everyone to get a mammogram. Male, female, she stands out there. So I look at it that way, that God intervened, that people need to listen to that.
Right.
I do feel that's what that happened.
I'm so glad you say that, because I think so many things that happen in our life, we don't realize that it's an opportunity for us to change other people's lives. And that's really one of the reasons I decided to do this podcast. Is I don't know who's going to watch it. I don't know if anybody's going to watch it. But I hope that just if one person sees what one of the shows that we do, and it touches their life to be a better person, to do something, to not feel sorry for themselves, to not feel guilty for thinking, why me? Anything like that. And I think God does that to us a lot through our life. I'm right now having to care for my 91-year-old mom, who is in a nursing home, who thanks God forgot her, because she's lost her eyesight, she's lost all her abilities, her mind's sharp as a tack, and she doesn't understand why God has kept her around. And I think we all go through that at some level, but God has a purpose. And I go up to my mom's room, and I hear her talk to her roommate. And her roommate is Jewish, but I can tell that she's Jewish by, I think, family. She's really not real Jewish, because I asked her about one of the Jewish holidays, and she said, I'm not really sure what that's about. So, but I hear her talking to them, and I'm thinking, maybe, Mom, you're just here for that. You're here to touch her life some way so that she gets to heaven that maybe she wouldn't have otherwise. You're here to change somebody's life so that they get a mammogram, that they may not go through what you went through. That is such an important part of our lives that I think we overlook.
I agree. Yeah.
And so after you get through this, does the play. You have to tell me about your experience with it. Did you have to have surgery?
Well, after that, I did surgery. Yes, I did. So we caught it in time, and then I had radiation. Well, after radiation, I got sick, and I had no energy. It was not like me I could go to bed 6 or 7 and get up at 8 or 9 in the morning, and I just had no energy. And it took about a year or more for anyone to figure out what it was. I went to every doctor trying to figure out what it was, and I have an autoimmune disease. And they feel the radiation is, always there. If you know a lot about, autoimmune diseases, it kicked it in overdrive.
Right.
So that is the point I really questioned God. When that happened, I was in my bedroom having a strong conversation. I can say that. And, that I didn't want to die at this point. That is what I said, that it scared me. That was the scare. I was scared. So we had a definite conversation that I said, this is not where I want to be in my life. My daughter's making it. I had just married my husband now, and it was great. And I was like, I need this time. So it has been a struggle with the disease, but definitely have I slowed down, as I told you. I had and at that point, right before that, I had joined the senior industry. I had went to look for my parents and decided this was a little bit like hotels. I just rent to a different crowd and a little bit longer. So it very much is like hotels.
It's a nice way to put it.
That's it, yes. So So it's a little slower than that. And then I decided that I just didn't need to manage. I love to help people. That's where I felt I can. So I think in the sales and marketing end, you do listen to them. You're the first to listen.
Right.
And so I did independent living because it was very much like hotels, and then came to assisted living and memory care. And I love this job. My community's in McKinney. It's a premier property. It has 5 stars, and all of our reviews are from families. That makes the difference.
And so tell me how your life experiences and your second chances, how are you using them today in your occupation, in your life? How have you found that what you went through has changed the way you do things?
And very much. And I feel from having my brain tumor, having to come back, I can relate to someone with dementia a little bit more. You're losing, your brain is dying, you're losing some of those parts. And it's such a struggle. And I can sit, and when I tell my story, I can tell they relax and they know I understand.
Right.
The ones like your mom that are completely coherent, but their body's breaking down. You do have to recognize those moments, those little moments that make a big difference. Right. And I do see it every day. I walked in this morning and we have a pet rabbit. And one of them is just holding that pet rabbit. And it's just a moment that she's just happy and, something is loving there. And so I feel like I just from there recognize it. And I always say, you just made my day, or, this little rabbit, you're loving on him. And she goes, but I need him too. Right. And so I try to recognize that every day with seniors. So I'm so lucky, and I feel like I'm in the place I should be. All these experiences have put me right where I need to be. I do see 70-year-old men that are coming in, primarily men that have been CEOs and engineers and big jobs, that they're having dementia starting in their 70s. So we know stress is a big part of life. Yeah. And so I do talk to younger people. I say, I was so driven in the hotel business, I didn't see my daughter's first step. The babysitter did. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that,
Right.
And so cost me a marriage, I feel I can go back and give people advice that I try to and not push it on them, but I'm there to some that I see that I can help just a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we got a few more minutes before we wrap this up. I think I'm going to take the next few minutes to kind of educate our viewers on, because I think a lot of people may be watching and going, okay, I've heard of assisted living, I've heard of independent living, I've heard of memory care. What really does it mean, and what are the differences?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think you said you've worked in kind of all the areas. And from an elder law attorney, I kind of break it down into 4 categories, and you can tell me if I'm right here. There's independent living, there's assisted living, there's skilled nursing, and then there's memory care. And it's kind of a gradual steps down depending on if health declines or cognitive ability declines. Have you worked in all the areas, and how do people navigate that? Especially, we've got viewers, and we've got more people in what I call the sandwich generation than anything else. They're like you and I, that we're caring for kids at whatever age. Typically, and then worse than ever, we got a lot of people caring for small kids, and they're also having to care for elder adults. How do they navigate? What do I do to help mom and dad? And where do they need to be?
I try to, I'm an adult child. I'm the oldest of 5. My parents live in Oklahoma, so I handle a lot from here. And my whole goal when I went in too was to help the adult child. Ask, you will hear a lot at church, people talk about, can bring in people to talk about independent living and things like that. But I think you have to ask till you find that right person to ask about your parent. They're at this stage. Independent living is, as it says, it's independent. They're independent to be safe, to feed themselves, dress themselves. It's a social atmosphere, a lot like a hotel. That's what it is.
I like
very
the way
social.
It's much more. That really, so my mom was an independent for a while, and I found that was great for her because my mom's not a social person, but it gave her the opportunity to play bingo. It gave her the opportunity to be around other people her age, but still be independent, still be able to cook her own meals and live in her own apartment, but be able to socialize. So it was kind of the best of both worlds in the way I looked at it. And then from there, her health declined. And in my mom's situation, we skipped assisted living. When does somebody know, okay, we're not, independent living is not safe anymore. Let's look at assisted living. And what is that?
So assisted living a lot is when they do get forgetful to a point, but they can still dress themselves. They can still eat. They may need prompts, some to say, hey, it's time to brush your teeth. You know, it's the daily living. We assist with the daily living things.
Okay.
So that's what that is. And it's perfect too. It's still very social in that. And I do have engineers. Engineers are very quiet. They want to stay in their room. That's what they've done their whole lives. But they still like to hear people. They'll open that door, and there's still that social aspect of people being around, and they're their same age.
Do they cook their own meals in assisted living?
No, we do their meals. So the meals are done for them.
So you have like a group area to have meals and stuff like that.
And we encourage that they all come together. You know, it's more like a family style dining, and all be there together. But again, take it to their room if they want. So it's still you can come and go, you know, with your family and assisted living. So a little bit like independent, just more assistance. You do have that assistance.
And that's what I like. I like about that is because they still maintain some independence.
Yes.
Whereas when you skip all the way to what my mom did, you can go to skilled nursing. That's kind of what I used to classify as nursing homes. What we used to call nursing homes, and everybody had a negative connotation for them. Now, they're not the greatest. I don't think any of them are great, but they're necessary. They're not like they used to be. In the old days, they were really nasty. And I remember even when I was doing litigation, I represented a nursing home, and I hated going over there because it smelled bad, and I felt so terrible for these people. It's not like that. My mom's is actually very, very nice, but it's more like a hospital. And skilled nursing is when somebody really can't care for themselves. Quite often they're in diapers, they have trouble going to the bathroom on their own, or if they can still go to the bathroom, they need help doing it. They're bedridden a lot or wheelchair bound, and they need, as it says, skilled nurses. They need medical professionals on site to keep an eye on things. And then from there, we have memory care. And explain what really memory care is. So
memory care, if we have someone in assisted that they're no longer safe, they cannot remember what to do, might be a flight risk, things like that, behavioral issues, we would transition them to our memory care. Where Teresa's house is, we have 3 separate houses, and assisted living is in one, memory care is in one, and then we have one called advanced care. We are the only community at this point. We have nurses on full time. Our founder, co-owner is Teresa Whittington. There is a Teresa. And Godwin Dixon. Teresa focuses on dementia. We are all trained in dementia by Teresa, and she's phenomenal. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's for 14 years in the nursing home when I was younger, so I know exactly what you mean. And, you know, had I known, you know, then what I know now would have been such a help. But in memory care, with us, it's in our director that's there, worked for Teresa 10 years. They are there to focus that those are in memory care with their dementia. It's just amazing to watch the people. I call it my rowdy house because they're doing something all the time. You know, keeping them busy, keeping them. So when you get the memory care,
minds moving.
Yes.
I mean, even if certain areas of their mind aren't working and they're forgetful or whatever, you still want to keep the mind.
Exactly.
Kind of like any muscle. You want to keep doing stuff.
And we may play bingo. Sunday they baked a cake, and everybody was in there baking a cake, you know, at some point. And then at that point, if If we can't feed ourselves or walk, then our advanced care, they move to that, which is where our nurses are in the office there. We can also do a Parkinson's patient. And that's dear to my heart because it's their mind usually is right for a very long time. The body's shutting down.
Right.
So we can do that. So that's how we maneuver. Where ours is advanced care, it's not quite skilled nursing. So from there, we would do that from there. So we're unique out there in our community with all those nurses, so that we can do that.
So thank you for telling us about Teresa's house. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot.
Oh dear.
To wrap up the show, if you were to tell anybody what your life and some advice on how somebody should have an outlook on tomorrow, what would you tell them?
I think I'd tell them to take time in the morning, say a little prayer, and just enjoy life. Look at things. Think of how you affect other people. I think what you do in your own actions and how that's going to affect someone else, and take it to heart. Learn from that, and make a difference in someone's day every day.
Well, thank you so much, Lawana. I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And those of you all out there, thank you for joining us. I hope you got something today. I did. This was an awesome show. But remember, every day is a second chance, so don't skip that. Today, think about what you're going to do to make a difference in somebody's life or in your life. And tomorrow is another time. So every single chance you get, let's do something right. Our world needs it. God bless you all. Thanks for joining me.